Hello, welcome to Motorpoint. I'm Tim, and are you ready for the world's shortest car review? This is the Mercedes A-Class, and it is a very good car. What? Oh, you want to know more? Well, I've got a theory that if you want a Mercedes, nothing else will do. That three-pointed star on the nose means an awful lot to some people, and less to others. But the A-Class is the most affordable way into Mercedes ownership, and it just so happens to be a really decent car. You don't need to know much more than that, probably. But do please watch the rest of this video, otherwise it'll be about 2 hours of my life that we're going to spend filming this review that will just be wasted. Here's the beginner's guide to the Mercedes A-Class. It is a small family hatchback that rivals the likes of the BMW 1 Series and Audi A3, and to my eyes, this looks a little bit posher than either of those cars. It's a world away from the very first Mercedes A-Class, the one that came out in the 1990s. It looked like a house brick, and it did have a habit of falling over a bit when it did slaloms too fast. This is nothing like that. This version came out in 2018. It's got these nice sleek headlights. This is a mid to top spec A35 model, so it's quite a fast one. But I just think it exudes confidence. It's a car that says, I've done quite well with my life and I feel good about myself. And that does sound arrogant, but I think that's all right. That whole feel good, my life is great vibe really does continue in the cabin, because on top spec models at least, it just makes you feel really good about yourself, thanks in part to these twin high-tech infotainment screens, and this digital driver's display as an option can go even bigger than it is in this one. Now, I would say entry-level SE models, they don't even get parking sensors or a reversing camera, which does feel a little bit mean in a Mercedes, but otherwise the vibe in here is great. Now, I want to show you that infotainment system in a bit more detail because it's really, really cool. This infotainment system is called MBUX. I won't show it to you because it does some cool stuff. On some models, when you put in a sat-nav direction, it will actually use a camera feed from the nose of the car and overlay arrows on it to show you things like which exit to take off roundabouts, which turning to take. It's kind of augmented reality. It is really quite cool. Now, most models have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so you can use your phone's apps on here. Some models you have to plug in, and there's the USB-C down there for that express purpose. There's also a wireless charging mat on higher end models. I've got 2 cup holders as well. And the whole infotainment system, you can use it as a touchscreen, or you can use this little haptic mat down here, which vibrates as your finger goes over icons. Or you can control it using these little touch pads on the steering wheel. And it's quite easy to use on the move, but not quite as easy to use as the system in the BMW 1 Series. Now, I have to compliment the Mercedes A-Class on the quality of its materials. Most of what you see that is silver is actually cold to the touch and feels metallic. Not everything is, like some of these bits down here are just silver coloured plastic, but it's the entry-level Mercedes, I can forgive it that. The leather is man-made, but that doesn't half feel like real cow. Now, it's all well and good your front seat passengers being treated like kings or queens, but does that mean your back seat passengers get treated like muck? The Mercedes A-Class might be a smallish car, but backseat room is pretty good, to be honest. There's noticeably more knee room than in the previous version of this car. There's more headroom, and my feet fit under the driver's seat just fine. I'm 6'3", that's in my driving position, so I can sit behind myself, which is quite rare in a car this small. Now, these sport seats are reasonably wide and bulky, so the view out is a bit blocked by those, so you could feel a little bit claustrophobic back here. But I've got 2 USB sockets hidden down here. The ISOFIX child seat points are really easy to get to. They're not hidden behind covers or flaps, but there isn't an armrest that flips down here in the middle, so I can't really live like a king fully, but it's all right. Now we're back outside to talk about one of my favourite topics in the whole of the automotive world, which is the Mercedes A-Class's bum. I just like the way it looks. I like the slender tail lights, and because this is the sporty A35, you get twin exhaust tips. If you get the stupidly fast A45, they get even bigger. What doesn't get bigger is the boot. It's 355 litres on most models, which is about 25 litres less than on the Audi A3 or Volkswagen Golf, but it's still a nice usable space. The hybrid version of this has only got a 310 litre boot, but what does a litre look like in terms of boot space? There's only one way to show you, frankly, and it involves invoking the Motorpoint Big Boot Challenge. It does, sorry. This this doesn't fit. Now that is a bit of a failure for the A-Class. As pretty as its bum is, you can't fit as much as you want in it. For example, this small suitcase doesn't fit at all. These two big suitcases stack on top of each other okay, but you have to take the parcel shelf out if you want to be able to see out the back window. It's all right. I think a Volkswagen Golf would have fit all of this in with no bother. Now, that's enough boring stuff about practicality. Let's take the A-Class out on the open road and see how it drives. Right, let's go for a drive in the Mercedes A-Class. You put the foot on the brake and you hit the engine start button there. Now, most A-Class models are automatic. There are a few manuals in the entry-level cars, but in the automatic, you put it into gear by pushing down on the column shifter, and then you're away. And the first thing you really notice when you get behind the wheel of one of these is that you feel like you're in a bit of a tank. It feels a little bit claustrophobic. The windscreen seems quite small. But actually, it's all right. The only real negative in terms of visibility is over your shoulder. It's got big, thick rear pillars, but every modern car does for safety reasons. Now, in terms of engines, there's a massive range. I'm going to try and remember most of them. On the petrol side, there's an A180 and an A200, which are both 1.3 litre engines, reasonably efficient, about 45 mpg. The A180 does feel a little bit slow. Then there's an A250, which is a 2 litre petrol, which is 220-ish horsepower, quite quick. There's an A250E, which is the plug-in hybrid version, which can get you 40 miles on a charge, but remember, it's got a slightly smaller boot. On the diesel side, there's an A180D, there's an A200D, and then there's an A220D. The last two of those are 2 litres and feel pretty nippy, but they're still incredibly efficient, 60 mpg plus. Now, there are some fast ones as well. There's this, the A35, which has a 2 litre petrol engine with 306 horsepower, 4-wheel drive, and a very fast 0 to 60 time that I've forgotten. And then there's an A45S, which is 421 horsepower. 4-wheel drive, it feels like an absolute rocket ship, and it can do drifts with its 4-wheel drive system. It's incredibly racy, incredibly loud, and it's one of my favourite cars that I've ever driven. They are expensive though. You're looking about 45 to 50 grand for a nearly new one from Motorpoint, and we do have them in stock occasionally, so keep an eye out for them. But yeah, that's enough of the engines. I would pick the A200D, frankly, and enjoy the MPG, but that's just me. Let's hit the motorway and find out if this is a comfortable car at motorway speeds. Right, let's accelerate from 30 miles an hour up to 70 in the A35S, and yeah, that's 60 miles an hour, that is 70 miles an hour. It's blooming quick. The A45 is gonna tear your face off. But once you're up to 70 miles an hour, it's reasonably refined. There isn't much wind noise, there isn't much road noise. The steering does feel quite heavy in this A35, but that kind of gives you this reassuring feeling. Otherwise, the A-Class is a comfortable car. Now, a non-AMG version, so one of the regular diesels or petrols, they ride really quite well. They prioritize comfort over sportiness, and we are going to get some twisty roads where I can talk about that, but I quite like that. As motorway mile munchers, they're among the best small cars you can buy. If you get a Volkswagen Golf, that'll be ever so slightly more comfortable if it's got adaptive suspension, but otherwise, the A-Class feels like a grown-up Mercedes cruiser. Safety tech. There's loads of safety tech as well. I've got active lane keeping assist, active cruise control, automatic emergency braking. It's a very safe car, and it just gives you a sensation of being a nice, comfortable, safe place for your family. But let's hit those twisty roads and find out if it can be fun as well. As I said, the Mercedes A-Class trades more on comfort than sportiness, and even this sporty A35 isn't jiggling me around like crazy, and these are some of the bumpiest roads I've ever driven on. Yeah, I'm not being jiggled around. I was down here in a Ford Puma ST the other day, and that was bouncing me all over the shop. So they are all very composed, and this is incredibly quick across country. 4-wheel drive, complete confidence in the corners, the steering weights up nicely, but that's all true of the normal A-Class as well. So even if you're in a diesel one, it's much more dynamic than the previous generation. It's a really lovely car to drive, and you don't even have to be driving fast to enjoy it. Although I have got this in Sport Plus, so the exhaust makes a lot of nice noise and pops and bangs and all the rest of it. Really, really lovely thing, this. The A45 is a bit leery. You have to be on your toes a bit in the sportier modes, but what a lovely car. Anyway, that's enough about how it drives. Let's go back to Motorpoint and sum up. At the start of this video, I facetiously suggested Mercedes buyers only want a Mercedes because the way they look, but actually the A-Class is easily good enough to tempt me out of an Audi A3 or BMW 1 Series. It's got cracking infotainment, it feels lovely inside, and it just feels like a posh Mercedes should. And yet, the fast versions of this are more fun to drive than the fast versions of the Audi and the BMW as well. So it's got sports fans covered too. Really, I just like it. Maybe I'm a Mercedes person. Thank you ever so much for watching. If you've made it this far, please give the video a like if it's been helpful and subscribe to the Motorpoint YouTube channel because we've got plenty more nearly new car video reviews coming soon. Thanks for watching.